A master jewel thief steals gems worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It was the kind of thing you'd see in a movie. I mean, these guys were just very slick, very quick.
Armed with a team of highly trained experts and an arsenal of sophisticated electronics.
They could bypass any alarm system, state-of-the-art.
And break into an ultra-secure safe.
What I was seeing was somebody who had not only the tools to crack safes, but obviously the training.
Find out how he did it, next on Masterminds. In the late 1990s, the FBI was caught off guard by a rash of nearly 50 jewelry store heists in the southeastern United States.
They had done so many heists, I think we conservatively estimated at over $10 million.
Authorities discovered that with every jewelry store heist, thieves had also knocked over a nearby grocery store, making as much as $30,000 in cash. Many of the techniques used were unfamiliar to authorities.
A lot of times you see smash and grab stuff where people just go in, smash a window, smash the display case, take what they can, and get out of there while the alarm is ringing. This group went to great extents to circumvent the alarm, and very sophisticated safe cracking methods were used.
They even planted false clues to lead police astray.
They would bring hair from wigs or from actual people other than themselves, and they'd drop the hairs around, hoping that the police would, get those hairs and then have the DNA of somebody else.
Then, on the morning of May 21st, 1999, in Raleigh, North Carolina, thieves struck again. As Mark Andrew Scales tried to enter his jewelry store, he discovered he had a problem.
I tried my key in the front lock, and it wouldn't go in.
Andrews calls the police.
The police came in. I came in after them. We just looked around, and it was just terrible.
Thieves had entered through a hole in the wall leading from the business next door.
And the alarm wires were pulled out. The actual phone lines were pulled out.
$200,000 worth of jewelry was gone.
The safe was open. The merchandise was gone. Everything was gone.
The 4,000-pound safe, made from highest-grade steel reinforced with concrete walls and tungsten carbide bolts, had been surgically opened.
The person who came in to look at the safe, they're going to be right on the money to do that.
At the crime scene, FBI found all incriminating evidence had been destroyed.
We didn't take prints. They had damaged all the evidence by spraying fire extinguishers.
The safe was professionally drilled. The alarm system was professionally compromised, and we had no early warning. So basically we had a crime scene, no subjects, very professionally done. So we thought we had a sophisticated group.
From beginning to end, it was a seamless operation.
I would have to say that they were a real-life Mission Impossible crew.
And there was not a clue as to who did it.
The mastermind the FBI was searching for was Tony Granums. Armed with an extraordinary range of skills, he pulled off the most sophisticated jewelry store heist in U.S. history. A resident of Palm Beach County, Florida, Granums is living a double life. Working as an ambulance driver, he is also dealing drugs. Granums soon comes to the attention of corrupt police officer Mark Collins. The two men strike up an unorthodox friendship and go into business as private investigators. Granum sees an opportunity to use Collins as a surveillance expert for his jewelry heists.
The advantage that having a PI license and having an ex-cop on your payroll are large, because if they're stopped while they're out and about late at night trying to case a jewelry store, they can indicate to the local officer who just pulls them over that, look, I'm here on a PI job.
He now talent scouts master safecracker Mike Ornelas.
They had done some burglaries early on in Florida, and they realized that they were heating up their own backyard, and they didn't want to bring that kind of attention to themselves.
But Granums can do reconnaissance anywhere he wants because he flies his own plane.
The plane was essential. It allowed them to move very quickly. You could pretty much just go under the radar, so to speak.
He lands at small regional airports, where he knows all flight records are destroyed within 72 hours. Granums then finds the ideal city for his heist, Raleigh, North Carolina.
So they were looking for communities big enough, sort of like Raleigh, Macon, Georgia, you know, not incredibly big cities, but big enough so they could blend in, but not too big so it'd be a hassle to drive around.
Having rented a car, Granums and his accomplices scope out the area.
They would all drive together and basically just ask themselves, how does it look for a target?
Strolling past the jewelry store, Granums goes next door to the adjoining business. He pays special attention to the emergency push bar on the back door and the location of the restroom.
They would then go in with a premise that my watch is broken or I need a battery.
Disguised as a telephone repairman, Granums enters and tells the owner there's a problem with his phone lines. He asks to be shown the junction box.
And while the proprietor was fixing that watch, then they would do a more sophisticated surveillance.
They wanted to get a sense of what the security system looked like, and because they were trained from past experience in putting in systems, they knew where to look pretty quickly. And they would check out the wires that they need to clip to disable the phone system.
Granums also confirms the location of the restroom matches the one in the laundromat. He then determines the make and model of Mark Andrews' safe. He decides the job is a go. The next step is to make some quick cash to finance their major score.
Whenever they picked a night to go out and hit a jewelry store, they always had what they called a backup target, and usually it was a grocery store.
Mike Ornelas had been an armored carrier. He had actually done pickups at grocery stores, and he was familiar with the fact that they had quite a bit of cash certain times of the month.
After the Winn-Dixie closes, they break in. Ornelas cracks the safe, and they make off with $30,000 in cash.
They wanted to pay for everything in cash to limit the trail of credit card receipts and checks that would lead back to them.
Granums and his men regroup at a local motel.
He would wear a name tag, kind of like a work uniform with a name tag of the name he was going to use as an alias. He would reason that if I told the lady at the desk my name is Tony Blake and I had a tag that said Tony Blake, she's less likely to ask for further identification. Somehow it just makes it seem like it's legit.
At 2 a.m., they return to Mark Andrews.
They put super glue in the lock of the stores on the off chance that the owner of the jewelry store was coming in at 4 in the morning to take inventory, and that would have given them a couple minutes to get out the back door.
Collins surveils the front and maintains communication via walkie-talkie. The first step is to disable the alarm.
The primary alarm system Mark Andrews was using was a dial-up system.
They would cut the outside wire, and they knew enough to be able to figure out what wire that was.
But Granums knows the alarm system may have a wireless backup. So instead of going through the back of the jewelry store, he makes his entrance through the laundromat next door.
He also knew that the back door just had a bar that you could push and the door would pop open. So he devised a tool that if you drilled a hole into the door, you could get this bar through.
That tool is an ingeniously simple device Granums has fashioned from the skeleton of an old umbrella. Granums knows the restroom in the laundromat shares a wall with the one in the jewelry store. He also knows the jewelry store restroom isn't protected by motion detectors. They're in. Granums radios Collins and lets him know. Before leaving the restroom, they use a mirror to check for additional alarms.
They basically just wanted to look around the ceiling and everything else and see if anything was set up differently than during the day.
Confirming there are no motion detectors, they move to step 2.
He had purchased from Germany, I believe, a very sophisticated piece of electronics equipment. It looks like it's an attaché case or some sort of a briefcase size, and it's basically a jammer.
For the next 10 seconds, all cellular signals within 300 yards are blacked out. That's his window of opportunity to remove the circuit board in the alarm panel. The backup alarm disabled, Collins turns off his cell signal jammer and turns on his police scanner. The men wait to make sure the police haven't been alerted. Granums now puts his master safecracker to work. The locking device inside the Mark Andrews safe is controlled by 3 tumblers. When the correct combination is dialed, the tumblers line up, allowing the throw bolt into the slot and the handle to open the door. The problem is, there's a million possible combinations, and time is ticking. Granums knows the safe has one weak spot, the metal axle supporting the tumblers.
So he stood on top of the safe, which the safe itself was 4 to 5 feet tall, with a drill that the bit was probably 3 feet long, and drilled all the way down.
Before he can reach the metal axle, Ornelas must first drill through layers of steel and concrete. He lines up the drill using laser guide lights. The work is exhausting. Drill bits, easily dulled by extreme heat, must be frequently replaced. Even if he gets through, Ornelas must hit the metal axle directly. The margin of error is less than 1/4 of an inch. After 2 hours of drilling, Ornelas realizes he's made a mistake. He has to start over.
After getting all the way down into it, he realizes he's about 1/2 an inch off, so he drills a second hole into it.
After another 2 hours of drilling, Ornelas finally knocks out the axle. Inside, they hit the jackpot, over $200,000 in gems and antique jewelry. Before making their getaway, Granums plants false clues, then uses a fire extinguisher to obliterate fingerprints.
One of the members of the team would wear like 3 or 4 sizes too big shoes and leave footprints that were too big for any of the people in the group.
Escaping back to Florida, Tony Granums is flying high. He's masterminded the perfect jewel heist, but a simple antique pocket watch threatens to bring him down. Tony Granums has done the impossible. In less than 24 hours, he has flown his plane to an unfamiliar city in North Carolina, scored $230,000 in 2 separate heists, and flown his plane back to Florida, all without leaving a clue. When the MO used in the Mark Andrews burglary matches that of jewelry heists in other states, the FBI is called in.
We looked at any other burglaries that were unsolved up and down the East Coast. We found a lot of sophisticated ones involving jewelry stores and grocery stores.
We knew that they were going to hit here, and they probably would hit here as long as they didn't feel like there was any heat on them.
The FBI is right. 1 month later, Granums strikes again. Another Winn-Dixie, another jewelry store. Only this time, spooked by a passing cop car, Granums calls off the second burglary in mid-stride.
We didn't even have Granums and Ornellas's names. We didn't have suspects. We thought this was a very professional burglary ring. And I felt that they were doing such a good job, sophistication-wise, that they probably felt a little bit bulletproof.
The next night, Granums strikes again. The FBI is prepared.
We basically divided up an area of Raleigh that had some jewelry stores and some supermarkets, and we were out in radio contact with one another, just basically up and down, looking to see suspicious activity and see if we could kind of catch them in the act.
But the FBI makes a costly mistake. They believe one of the grocery stores is open all night, and therefore not a target.
I still think about it. I still think about it. I just, if we had known, I mean, it was certainly, if I had known it was not a 24-hour store, we would have had somebody there.
Granums and his men make off with $20,000. But the FBI is about to get a lucky break.
I got a call at home on a Sunday morning from this nice lady, and she said, "Mark, you're never going to guess what I think I found."
A client whose antique pocket watch was stolen in the burglary has searched to replace it by shopping on the internet. She's amazed to spot her own watch for sale on eBay.
Pocket watches are serial numbered, and no two watches really have the same serial numbers.
We issued a search warrant to eBay and got subpoenaed the records for who was holding that auction site. And that gave us Robert and Shirley Serrano down in Tequesta, Florida.
Serrano was Granham's fence for the burglary, including the antique pocket watch.
Serrano had asked Granham's and Ornelas, "Is this safe to put in the showcase?" And that was kind of layman's terms for, "Hey, is this something I can show around?" Well, Granham's took that to mean, "Can I show it locally to people? Is it going to be okay to show locally in Florida?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." He didn't realize or hadn't thought about the fact that Serrano had started doing a lot of internet business.
The FBI bring Mark Andrews down to Serrano's store to identify the pocket watch and other stolen jewelry.
He was able to provide us with some receipts and some canceled checks showing a good deal of business to William Anthony Granham's and Michael Clarence Ornelas. This is the first time we had people to look at that may be responsible for this burglary in particular, but maybe some others.
The FBI subpoenas hundreds of Granham's personal records, searching for clues. Granham's almost always pays cash to avoid leaving a paper trail. But the day of the Mark Andrews heist, he forgot to top up the gas tank on the rental car. His credit card was charged. The FBI also finds Granham's pager records, showing that he was once paged from the Piedmont Regional Airport in Raleigh, North Carolina.
When I described the plane to one of the maintenance guys, I said, "Yeah, I remember it." And he said, "We did some maintenance on it."
A fuel pump was replaced on Granham's plane on the morning of the burglary. Granham's paid in cash. The FBI has enough evidence to confront Granham's.
He started talking to me saying, "Yeah, I did business with Mr. Serrano. I'm familiar with who he is. I'm in the jewelry business. I sell and buy jewelry." I told him the evidence that I had and that what I suspected was the case with him, his involvement in the burglary ring. And at that point, he said, "Here's my lawyer's card. You need to continue the conversation with my lawyer." I thanked him for his time, and I told him that I would probably see him later.
Requiring more evidence tying the gang to the scene of the crime, the FBI runs a check on the records of a payphone several hundred yards from the Winn-Dixie grocery store.
Ironically enough, one of their rules was not talking on phones. Towards the end, they got a little lax because most of these crimes were nowhere near being solved. They figured, we'll go ahead and use the payphones, but we'll just use prepaid phone cards. They thought that prepaid phone card could not be of any evidentiary value, and it turns out it could be.
Then at a hotel near another burglary, the FBI discovers a movie rental charged to Granham's credit card.
They went down the next morning and said, "Can you remove this?" He said, "Sure." They figured it wouldn't be on at all, but what it showed is a credit and a debit. It led us to a hotel room where they used the same fake name and same fictitious address. And that was a crucial piece of evidence.
Thanks to evidence gathered in its investigation, the FBI builds a strong case against Tony Granham's, charging him with 23 counts of burglary. Along with Granham's, the FBI arrests his accomplices, Mark Collins and Mike Ornelas. They offer all three men a deal.
A come-to-Jesus meeting is the equivalent of taking a bath. It's when they confess everything. And we approached all their attorneys and said, "Listen, we've got you guys, and we're willing to talk to you if they want to go this way." That was really the turning point for Granham's when I interviewed him. I mean, he broke down. He said, "I've got a child, and I don't want to be in here while he's growing up." I think he somehow let Ornelas know that he was talking so that Ornelas could make a decision whether he wanted to go ahead and do the right thing or whether he wanted to try to take a chance and roll the dice. And Ornelas came on board shortly thereafter.
But ex-homicide detective Mark Collins decides to play hardball.
But it was his dice to roll, and he rolled it. For whatever reason, he decided his attorney wasn't going to come forward, and it played out in court.
At trial, John Mark Collins is found guilty and sentenced to 5 years and 11 months. Because of his cooperation, Mike Ornelas receives only 18 months, while master jewel thief Anthony Granham's is sentenced to 24 months behind bars.
I think just the combination of the plane, the electronics equipment that Granham's has, the circumventing alarm systems. And then, obviously, Ornell is very sophisticated with his locksmith abilities and his ability to circumvent these safes that he cracks. So you bring all those elements together in one team, and you've got your made-for-TV movie there.
Their operation was seamless. I mean, there was not one crack in the way they put things together.
I've never met anyone that had the sophistication, the technology, and the smarts that Tony Granham's had. He's the man.